Welcome to The Deep Dive, where we unpack complex source material to give you the context you really need.
And today we have something pretty incredible, a rare, really candid interview with Myung, the founder of the Unification Church.
Yeah, this is from 1977 with a scholar named Frederick Sontag. And it wasn't just some quick press conference.
No, not at all. The sources show this was actually negotiated to be his last major interview of this kind. It ended up going from lunch all the way through dinner. It was long. And one person who was there said Sontag got him to truly reveal himself.
And that's so important because Sontag himself points out this huge problem. He says that outsiders hear facts about the church, but these facts get spun so much by opponents that it completely changes the outsider's understanding.
Exactly. And Moon himself basically agreed. He said that most of the misunderstanding, especially in America, was just due to ignorance about what he actually believed.
So this transcript is our chance to see it directly from him.
How he justified his mission, how he explained away the biggest controversies, and what he, ultimately wanted for America.
Okay, let's dive in. We're going to look at his claim of divine mandate, his really revolutionary take on Jesus, and his specific defenses against those major accusations of the time, money control, all of it.
He starts right at the foundation. He says the movement has a deep spiritual origin, that it came by a mandate of God.
And he was certain.
Absolutely certain. He insisted he gave up everything, his life, his family, his honor, only because he was totally sure he was right.
And that certainty, I guess, shapes how he sees all the opposition and negative press.
It's the entire lens. He doesn't just put up with the bad publicity. He says he's gratified by it.
Gratified? How?
Because for him, persecution is proof. It testifies to the newness of what he's revealing. He says every religious pioneer, Jesus included, was persecuted.
So the attacks just make the movement stronger.
That's the idea. True religious movements prosper and flourish under tribulation. It's not victimhood. It's a core part of the strategy. It's fuel.
Okay, so then why Korea? Why did this all start there? He gives 3 reasons.
He does. First, a homogenous people, a united nation. Second, a people with a really deep spiritual history. And third, this is the crucial one, a people who had experienced just immense suffering and hardship.
And why is that national suffering so important?
Because Moon argues that the world doesn't really get what he calls the brokenhearted aspect of God.
Meaning?
That since the fall of man, God has been in sorrow, his own children rebelled, and because Koreans have this history of national tragedy, they can uniquely understand that sorrow. They're sort of spiritually prepared to answer the call.
But he says that back in 1945, there were already Christian groups in Korea, spiritual groups, who should have been ready for him, like a John the Baptist figure preparing the way.
Right, they should have been. But he says they lacked humility. They were arrogant and they rejected his new movement.
And in doing so, they repeated the same pattern of rejection that Jesus faced.
Exactly the same pattern. So because the established church failed, he says he had to start from the role of John the Baptist all over again by himself.
Which brings us to the divine principle, the core text. To a traditional Christian, this sounds like heresy.
Oh, absolutely. But from his perspective, it's traditional Christianity that's the problem. He says it has departed considerably from the original will of God. It's all fragmented, sectarian.
So the divine principle isn't heresy, it's a course correction.
A totally fresh outlook that God requires to finish the job that was left undone 2,000 years ago.
And the priority of that job is key. He makes a really sharp distinction between saving yourself and saving the world.
A huge distinction. The movement's primary goal is the salvation of the world. Personal salvation, worrying about your own soul getting into heaven. That's secondary, completely.
He said he came to refresh the spirit of Jesus Christ.
Right, because he felt Jesus' original mission had been turned around by theology over the centuries.
Okay, let's get into what is probably the most shocking claim for many people. His teaching on Jesus' mission.
This is the big one. Moon taught that Jesus did not come to die.
Which is the entire basis of Christian theology, the crucifixion and resurrection.
I know. But in Moon's view, Jesus' purpose was to build the kingdom of God on earth, complete salvation. Physical and spiritual. The crucifixion, he says, only achieved spiritual salvation. The earthly mission, the physical part. It wasn't finished.
And he's very clear that this wasn't Jesus' fault.
Oh, not at all. It was the fault of the people who rejected him. And because that mission was left incomplete, a second coming was predicted.
And that's where he comes in.
That's the theological opening. This is why he calls his work a messianic crusade. It's here to finally finish God's will on earth.
This theology, It leads directly into all the controversy, doesn't it? Let's start with family separation.
The central paradox.
Yeah, the goal is a unified family for all mankind, but the first thing that happens is that individual families are torn apart. How does he square that?
He basically offers a spiritual explanation that overrides the physical reality. He claims members are drawn by the magnetic power of the truth, that they find a greater love in the movement than they had at home.
So it's not abandonment, it's, what, a heavenly emergency?
That's his phrase, exactly, a heavenly emergency. He compares it to a soldier leaving his family to go fight a war. It's temporary, but it's critical.
He even uses that line from the Gospels. I have not come to bring peace but a sword.
He does. He justifies that painful separation by saying, true, eternal peace requires a revolution inside of a person. And that sword is the necessary disruption to make that fundamental change happen.
Okay, what about the other big accusation from the 70s?
Right.
Brainwashing. Hypnotizing young people.
He just dismisses it outright. He says, and this is a direct quote, I have never even given one divine principle lecture to any newcomer.
So he's not the one doing the persuading.
He claims it has nothing to do with him or some kind of manipulation. He says people are just drawn by the truth itself. It's an education. And he makes a point to say, no doors are locked and anyone can leave anytime.
Let's talk about the money. The giant properties, the wealth. That was a huge point of contention.
A massive one. His logic there is all about motivation. He says material things are a blessing from God. They're not satanic. The only question is how you use them.
And if the motivation is God-centered and unselfish, then it's fine.
It's more than fine. It's required. You must use it for God's work.
Does he give any examples of this?
He does. He talks about buying what he calls dead, wasted property. He brings up the New Yorker Hotel with its 2,000 rooms, which he said look bombed out, the old Columbia University Club, the Manhattan Center.
So he's framing it as restoration, not acquisition of luxury.
Precisely. He's taking these abandoned assets and restoring them for God's purpose. And he pushed back hard on the idea that he was getting rich.
What does he say?
He was very blunt. I owe nothing personally. He was adamant that all the money came from the blood and sweat of the members and went right back into the mission.
Okay, the final big controversy.
Yeah.
His leadership style. Authoritarian, dictatorial. Those words were everywhere.
And he confronts that head on. He says, yes, from the outside it might look that way, but on the inside, he's just a parent to the members.
A parent.
Yes. And he makes this parallel. He says, no one calls God a dictator because he is love. So he claims his authority isn't about power. It's rooted in a parental love, which he says is stronger than any authority.
That is
Yeah.
a bold defense. You have to accept his theological premise to accept his leadership style.
It completely reframes the entire debate. You have to see him as the true parent first.
So let's shift to the mission in America. Was the goal ever political power? A takeover?
He says no. The goal is always religious, salvation. But the method, you see, that involves changing the world's leadership through education.
Not through elections, but through education.
Right, to instill new life into their hearts so you get God-centered leaders who govern morally.
But Watergate, I mean, supporting Nixon at his absolute lowest point, that looked intensely political.
It did. But Moon frames it as a spiritual response to a moral crisis, a national sin. He says they organized a prayer and fast committee with just one message: forgive, love, unite. For him, it wasn't politics. It was a sermon.
The strategy he lays out for dealing with global opposition it's just amazing. The lightning rod strategy.
It is remarkable. In 1976, when opposition was at its peak everywhere, what does he do? He sends missionaries to 120 nations.
He runs towards the fire.
Exactly. He wanted to expedite that controversy. He called the missionaries lightning rods sent out to attract persecution.
Why on earth would you do that?
The logic is wild. He believed the more they were persecuted, the faster the satanic world would lose its power and reveal its true nature. It turns being a victim into an offensive weapon. It's meant to speed up God's plan.
And he chose America as the main stage for all this. Why was the U.S. so important to him?
He called it the second Israel. He believed America was chosen to be God's final champion. But when he came here in 71, he felt the Christian spirit was dying.
So he came to save America from itself.
To start a Christian revolution, yes. To restore families, restore the youth, and get America ready to lead the world into the kingdom of God.
And his long-term vision wasn't just communal centers forever, right?
No, he saw that as temporary. The future was stable family settlements, more marriages, children, but also productive enterprises, businesses, schools, entire ideal cities.
A self-sufficient, God-centered civilization.
That was the goal.
It takes a lot of energy.
Heh.
And there's a funny little moment in the interview where Sontag asks him about it.
Oh yeah, the ginseng tea. He says he takes one honey ginseng root every single morning. He claims it gives him tremendous vitality, lets him speak for hours without getting tired. It's a very humanizing detail in all of this.
A reminder that even a messiah needs his caffeine, or ginseng.
Something like that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to that ultimate goal he talked about. Total liberation.
This is really the key takeaway. He says the Unification Church is not another denomination. It's a movement, a revolution. And its goal is total liberation, including the liberation of God and Jesus.
Liberating God.
From sorrow. He says they're the first movement to truly understand God's suffering, and they won't stop until the kingdom of God is physically built right here on earth and God's sorrow is finally over.
So it's a mission that, by definition, can never end. It guarantees a constant struggle.
And that leaves us with one last really provocative thought for you to consider. Moon stated very clearly that the core of the divine principle has never changed. But then he ends the interview with a twist.
What's that?
He says that while he has received the full revelation from God, he is purposely reserving certain truths to be revealed in the future.
So even after all this, what they have isn't the complete picture.
Exactly. He says there is a much greater area of truth yet to be revealed. So the question for you is this. If a religion's foundational truth is supposed to be absolute, what does it mean when the founder openly says he's holding parts of it back? It suggests a revelation that is still unfolding.
An incredible thing to think about. Thank you for walking us through all this.
My pleasure. It was fascinating.